Good day, everyone. I am back, your teacher Teddy, the moderator for our second episode of our series entitled Statistical Test. So now, before we start, let's have our objective for for today's video. At the end of this video tutorial, you are expected to first identify the proper statistical test in answering research question regarding the significant difference between two groups. Second, accurately employ the steps in hypothesis testing. Third one, skillfully navigate the SPSS software regarding significant difference between two groups. Fourth, improvise APA format table in summarizing the result. And lastly, comprehensively interpret and analyze the result into sentence form. So now let's go back to our contextualized research problem, which we introduced in our video number 1. But the difference is we will focus on our research question number 2. So our research question number 2, is there a significant difference to the degree of interest in mathematics of West Visayas State University ILS students when categorized according to sex, socioeconomic status, and year level? So since our video focuses only to our variable with two groups, we will have to focus on our variable, which is sex, which has the male and the female as a group. Since there are two groups, what do you think is the appropriate statistical test that we need to employ? So I have an answer for that. Our statistical data that we need to employ is, or statistical test that we need to employ is t-test for independent sampling. So what is t-test for independent sampling and when it is used? So t-test for independent sampling is most often used to analyze the result of 3 different types of study design. First is to determine if there's a difference between two independent groups, determine if there are differences between interventions, and determine if there are differences in change scores. But our focus for today is our first study design. Determine if there is a difference between two independent groups. So our two independent groups here is our male and female. So there are basic requirements on how to first before we do a t-test. So the first assumption is you have one dependent variable, which is measured at continuous level. So we have here one dependent variable, which is degree of interest in mathematics. Second assumption, you have one independent variable that consists of two categorical independent groups. As what I have said a while ago, we have female and male as our categorical independent groups. Assumption 3, you should have independence of observation. For the fourth one, there should be significant outliers in the two groups of the independent variable in terms of the dependent variable. And fifth one, your dependent variable should be approximately normally distributed for each group of the independent variable. And of course, you have homogeneity of variance. Given that all of this assumption or requirement is reached in our data, let's do now the t-test for independent sampling with the first step, writing the hypothesis. So our null hypothesis is there. You may read it. And our alternative hypothesis is also there. I know you all know how to do it. And I think it's our time to move forward to our degree of freedom. So our degree of freedom, if no one knows the definition, the degree of freedom refers to the maximum number of logically independent values, which are values that have the freedom to vary in the data sample. For t-test for independent sampling, our degree of freedom is equal to n sub 1 plus n sub 2 minus 2, given that n sub 1 plus n sub 2 is the total number of male and female. So of course, we all know that the total number is 50, since 50 is our number of participants. So 50 minus 2 is 48. Next one, let's state the level of significance. So the level of significance is defined as the maximum allowable probability of making a type 1 error. It is denoted as alpha, so it is our guide. if we will reject or do not reject our hypothesis. Remember, reject or do not reject, not accept. Okay? It's only reject or do not reject. So there are actually three levels of significance, which are 0.10, 0.5, and 0.01. But since this one is an education and social science researches, or one example of that, we need to use 0.05. So this is the result for our actually our APA format results for our t-test. But before that, I will share to you how to do a t-test. So this is how you do a t-test. I'm gonna exit this one. Given that you have already did the transferring of data from the Excel and the SPSS, so for me, you don't need to exit your SPSS if you're not done running all your research questions. So now, since we already answered question number 1, it is easy now to analyze our question number 2 because we don't need to transfer data. So since we are ready now, let's start the analysis. You click Analyze. You click Compare Means. You click Independent Sample t-test. And you click here the what? You click here sex in the grouping variable, and then you click degree of interest in mathematics and put it in the test variable. And then you click sex. So define group. Your group 1 would be 1, which represents male, and group 2 will be female. And you click continue and then click OK. So if you click that, this is the result. Actually, I have transferred the result a while ago in our PowerPoint presentation. So I think we are now ready to interpret this one. So this is the result from our SPSS software. So since our significant is greater than 0.05, you take the first row of values. Remember that. If it is greater than 0.5 to 1, you take the first row of values. So our T there is negative 0.815, our DF is 48, and significant, which is 0.419. So as you can see, we have the correct value for DF, which is 48. So now, let's have the APA format. So APA format, we have 5 rows, categories, DF, T-value, P-value, interpretation. So all of this will be vital in our interpretation. Or actually, this is useful in the format that I will give to you later, how to interpret it. So as you can see, the p-value here is 0.419, which is greater than 0.05. So as you can see, the interpretation is not significant. Moving on, by the way, before we move on, let's change T of what is DF? 48. So that's T of DF is equal to negative 0.18, comma, P is equal to 0.419. So that's how you change it. Your DF is here, 48. Your T value is here. Your sig2 tailed is here. So you just change the values and you get this one at the end of the sentence. So how to interpret that? So interpretation goes this way. There is no significant difference to the degree of interest in mathematics of West Visayas State University ILS students when categorized according to sex. So T of 48 is equal to negative 0.815, P is equal to 0.419. And that's how you analyze the data using t-test for independent sampling. Before we end our video, this is the steps or the summary of steps. Actually, our step number 1 is state hypothesis. The second is solve for the degree of freedom. Third is state the level of significance. Our step 4 to 6 is just the same to our first video. I already explained that. The only difference here is the step number 7 and step number 8. So step number 7, you click compare means and you click first analyze, compare means, and then independent sample t-test. And our step 8, move sex to the grouping variable and degree of interest in the dependent variable. But always remember, this varies dependent to the context of your research problem. So your grouping variable is, of course, the grouping variable of your study. Get the given grouping variable of your study. And then, of course, the dependent variable is, of course, also the dependent variable of your own study. So this may differ. So I think that's step number 8. And step number 9 is you click continue and okay to generate the result. 10 is create APA table. And step 11, you interpret the result. Okay, I think that's all for this video. I hope don't forget to like and subscribe our channel in YouTube, Statistics Speaks. Goodbye and thank you everyone. See you in the next episode.